Researchers are cautiously optimistic, they say, about the huge number of sockeye salmon returning to the Fraser Canyon this year. Low river levels, though, and warmer water are a cause for concern. And for more on that, we have reached Kristen Walters. Kristen is a biologist and director of salmon habitat with the Raincoast Conservation Foundation. Good morning to you, Kristen.
Good morning.
First off, what are the predictions for Fraser sockeye this year?
Sure, yeah. So for this is a prediction for early Stuart sockeye salmon, and they are a group of more than 40 distinct populations of sockeye that spawn in the Stuart River system. It's located near Fort St. James, which is about 2 hours northwest of Prince George. And the forecasts this year are predicting a return of around 725,000 sockeye for that group. And it's about 7 times above the preseason run size forecast, which is around 116,000 fish or so. So it is a significant increase in the return. And as you mentioned, we are cautiously optimistic. But we do want to remember that the total number of Fraser sockeye returns are still well below historical average, and we need to keep that kind of shifting baseline phenomenon in mind where it's normal. We're increasingly describing populations according to contemporary conditions without referencing the historical baseline. So just keeping that in
Yeah.
mind.
And how far below that historical baseline are we?
Quite a ways. The historical returns would be in the tens of millions
Wow.
in terms of all Fraser River Chinook salmon, or sorry, Fraser sockeye salmon. So this is again just a subset of that, and these populations would have historically encountered, as you mentioned, different in-river challenges such as different flow rates and temperatures. So it would have fluctuated, but it would have been higher than what we're seeing now.
All right, but I guess in more recent terms, though, this is a good return, and why are we seeing such a good return?
Definitely, yeah. So it is an encouraging return. It is the highest since 1997 or so. And it's too early to say what is contributing to the increase. Some have pointed to cooler ocean temperatures due to this 3-year La Nina weather pattern we had
Hmm.
between 2023. But it is really hard to tease apart which factors are contributing these numbers because so many things can affect salmon abundance at different life stages and in every habitat type, ranging from the freshwater to the marine environment. So too early to say yet, but I know folks are digging into it.
And while historically we have seen the numbers drop, we have seen in more recent times this population of fish actually considered, endangered virtually. Why was that?
Yeah, so these populations, this group of populations, did encounter both the Big Bar slide in 2019 as well as the Chilcotin slide last year. So, in terms of just the last handful of years, these fish have navigated significant in-river challenges, such as these big landslides. So, the 2024 run last year was the first generation to return after the Big Bar slide. And the there was enhancement of the populations done in 2020 in terms of enhancement, meaning there was hatchery fry released in 2020 to kind of help boost the population that really had very few fish make it above the Big Bar slide in 2019. So this larger return this year could be a large number of hatchery and wild fish that are returning after the first generation after that slide. As well as the Chilcotin landslide last year, reports are saying that that slide is still active in terms of inputting sediment into the river system, but it's not interrupting fish migration. So they have very recently encountered some big challenges, but it seems like they are able to move past those in-river landslides that happen, as well as starting to show some recovery.
Hmm. And so tell us about the specific concerns then this year. There's river temperature. Is there also, I guess, the level of the rivers that we're seeing is a concern?
Yes. So for the Fraser River in particular, the discharge is currently 37% lower than average, and the water temperature is 2.1 degrees higher.
Hmm.
And as you noted, this poses a challenge to salmon for when we have these prolonged periods of drought where we receive really little rain. We have decrease in summer flows and increase in water temperature. And salmon have this very narrow thermal threshold for their tolerance for temperatures. So ranging from 18 degrees to 24, 25 degrees
Hmm.
is is where physiological stress and fatality occurs.
So we're talking about Fraser River sockeye here. Do we know what's happening with other species of salmon right now?
Yeah, so for Fraser River Chinook, the forecast for stream type Fraser Chinook, which are kind of a subset of Chinook, the juveniles spend 1 year in freshwater environments. The forecasts were also very low, and early returns are confirming this. And this is of note because Fraser River Chinook are the primary prey for endangered southern resident killer whales due to their larger body size, higher fat content. And they're in the Salish Sea around the spring and early summer, which is important for the whales as they come out of winter. So the Chinook numbers have definitely significantly declined over the last several decades, and this is primarily due to loss and degradation of habitat as well as overharvest from fisheries. So there are some exceptions to this. For example, the South Thompson Chinook return had a great return in 2023, as some folks may remember.
Hmm.
They're forecasted to have an average return this year. And I want to point to when we think about changes in populations, we do need to have those longer term data sets to make any, to determine if they're recovering or not. So Fraser River Chinook in general for stream type are pretty low. Forecasts are low, early returns are low, with some exceptions.
And what does that low return for Chinook mean for the resident killer whale population?
So there's a recent report that just came out by 31 scientists spanning Canada, the US, and the European Union, and it really reiterated the need for addressing this lack of primary prey for southern resident killer whales. And some recommendations that came out of that report include fisheries closures to increase abundance for of stream type Chinook for southern resident killer whales, and really thinking about fisheries closures in different times in different areas. But for southern resident killer whales, it's not just limited prey abundance that is preventing the population from recovering. They also are significantly impacted by underwater noise from large vessels that transit the Salish Sea really often, which interrupts their ability to echolocate and find these Chinook salmon, but also to communicate with one another. And they're also adversely affected by contaminants from the urban environment, which can limit and interrupt viable pregnancies. So they were determined as being the most contaminated marine mammals in the world in 2000, a couple of papers that came out 2000, 2002 by our colleagues. And so these three threats facing killer whales, limited prey, availability and abundance, underwater noise, and contaminants are the three threats to their recovery. So in terms of salmon, if we can think about increasing the abundance and availability of Chinook, that's the primary limiting factor preventing their recovery.
Kristen, thank you so much for the time this morning. Really appreciate you bringing us up to speed on all of this.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. You take care. Bye bye.